Welcome back to the Figure Annuity Sales podcast. It's Caleb North here, and I'm going to talk about something that I don't think we've ever discussed on the podcast before. I want to talk about things that new agents need to know, things that new agents need to understand and hear from somebody that's been in the industry for a while when they're considering getting into the annuity sales side of things. And so I've got a handful of things I'm going to discuss today. And I'm even going to go through the specific licensing and training requirements necessary at the end of the episode. So the very practical things that you actually need to have in place, we'll get to at the end. But there's some more, I guess you could say, theoretical things that you need to understand first. And really the first thing I would say is that annuities are not like other lines of business in the insurance world. And it's not that they're not like those things in the sense of insurance. It's that the client perception around annuities is not the same as what they have around other lines of insurance. So let me explain what I mean. When somebody is reaching out to a property and casualty agent for some auto insurance or some boat insurance or some home insurance, they've pretty well made the decision that they're going to purchase the insurance. They're trying to figure out, what are my rates going to be? What type of coverage can I get, etc. That same buying mentality is present when you look at Medicare, when you look at life insurance. Generally speaking, there is a relatively high percentage of individuals that when they become a lead for property and casualty, health, life, Medicare, etc., that they have pretty well determined that they are going to buy an insurance policy. So the agents that are selling those types of insurance don't necessarily have to help a client come to a purchase decision. They have to help the client figure out what to buy. Annuities are different in the sense that rarely does an annuity lead get generated that has made a purchase decision. Rarely is an annuity lead coming through saying, hey, I'm looking to buy an annuity. The vast majority of the time, you have people who have questions. They want to see, how do these things work? Because quite frankly, there's a lot of ignorance out there around annuities and the way that they function, what they do, the problems they solve, etc. So they don't really know that they are in the market for an annuity, and they certainly, most of the time, do not have a purchase decision made. They're curious to see how it might be applicable to them. And this is where you see a pretty stark contrast in the success between an agent who is successful in other lines of business and an agent that is trying to be successful in annuities. If an agent comes over from the Medicare world, the life insurance world, the P&C world, and they want to start selling annuities and they approach it the same way, they're likely to miss out on a lot of sales, on a lot of business in the annuity world, because the client mentality is inherently different than in the other lines of business. So there are a few things that an agent can do to significantly impact their success in a positive manner, given that annuities are different. Now, before I jump into those things specifically, I do want to address the fact that the similarity between annuities and property and casualty, life, Medicare, other lines of health, etc., is that it is still insurance. So at its core, annuities are still insurance products. And for those of you who have been around for a while, you've sold annuities before, you know it to be true. But what happens a lot of times, and I hear it, is that agents will enter the annuity space, and they almost, because annuities are financial products by nature, they almost assume it's not insurance. It's like a financial planning tool. And it is a type of financial planning tool, but at its core, it is still insurance. And insurance companies don't want you to think of annuities as a financial planning, assets under management, securities type of equivalent, because they're not designed to be that. They are designed to still be a type of insurance. And really the two main types of insurance that we kind of discuss that annuities are is longevity insurance and market protection insurance. What do I mean by that? Well, people don't know how long they're going to live. So if life insurance on one hand covers you when you die, it pays your heirs and beneficiaries. Well, what pays you if you live longer than you expect, aka longevity? Well, an annuity, if you have a guaranteed stream of lifetime income, is a form of quote unquote longevity insurance. Even though there's really nothing that is technically longevity insurance, it functions as longevity insurance by effect of the guarantees that it creates. The other side is market protection insurance. If assuming you're not dealing with variable annuities and RILAs, you're dealing with indexed, multi-year guaranteed, SPIAs, DIAs, those types of fixed products, it is a type of market protection insurance in that when the market falls, you're not taking the loss with the market. You are protected from the downside. And then in certain products like indexed annuities, you actually get to participate in the upside of the market performance. So market protection insurance, longevity insurance, you could think of it as, I've heard some agents talk about it as sleep insurance. What gives you the peace of mind that your retirement income is going to be there? It helps you sleep at night. So retirement income insurance, like there are all kinds of different ways that it could be articulated is as a type of insurance, even if those types of insurance aren't technically a thing. That it's by effect of the way that annuities function. Now, there are a couple of things, like I said, given the differences of the client mentality regarding annuities, that agents can do to set themselves up for greater success. And the first thing is have a duplicatable process. If you've never sold annuities before, you need to learn the process of somebody that has and is doing it at a high level. I'm not talking about somebody that's writing $2 million a year in annuity premium and they're trying to be your annuity guru. Okay, even $5 million a year in annuity premium to me is not necessarily somebody that you would want to look at and go, oh, well, I'll just duplicate what they're doing. Why? When you break it down by average case size, if I can get my calculator to come up here, if somebody's doing, let's say, $5 million a year, and by the way, that is way more than what most agents are writing. Okay, most agents that sell annuities are not selling $5 million a year in annuity premium, but with the industry average of $150,000 in case size, you're talking about 33 sales a year. It's not a large sample size. How long could somebody realistically stay in the Medicare business selling 33, 34 policies a year in Medicare or life insurance or property and casualty or health? Very, very few. So in the grand scheme of production, it doesn't take a lot of sales to be in the top echelon of annuity producers. But because it doesn't, I would also make the argument that that doesn't necessarily mean that's somebody you would want to follow. You want to follow somebody's process that is doing it at an extremely high level. I mean, you want to be following somebody's process that is selling 80 to 200 policies a year on the annuity side. And if they're not, I would argue that they may not even fully know and understand the process that they're using. It's possible that they do. The point is, the more total policies and the larger the average case size is that an agent is selling, the more closely you want to pay attention to that agent's process. And I want to provide the caveat and say, vet out the integrity and the morals with which the agent is selling what they're selling. You can go and talk to somebody selling $50 million a year in annuity premium and be talking to somebody that isn't doing it morally or ethically. So you have to not only align where you're trying to get with where they are or have been, but you also have to align the ethics, the integrity, the moral compass that you have. You don't want to follow somebody that is doing it in a way that you would not do it based on your standard of ethics and integrity. So make sure that you're following a process that is client-centric and all about doing what is best for the client, if that's the way that you want to operate. And that's the way I would encourage every agent to operate. That said, you want to have a duplicatable process. You want your phone calls, your appointments, your fact-finding, your presentation. You want all of the skeleton, so to speak, the infrastructure of your annuity business to be virtually the same from client to client. And what changes from client to client is their situation, their needs, and the product you're representing. But the rest of it, how you fact find, how you get to the problem that they have, how you present the solution, how you go over the advantages and the things that annuities do, the benefits of annuities to the clients, that should all be pretty much the same. And because you can follow a duplicatable process, it makes it easier for you to come across as an expert in a shorter period of time. If you're constantly changing how you're saying things and the way you're articulating this and that and the other, it's not going to be deeply rooted and ingrained in your mind. And because it won't be deeply rooted and ingrained in your mind, it's going to take you much longer to sound like an expert to somebody. So have a duplicatable process. The other thing I want to add that will set you up for way greater success in the annuity world, and I see this with every top producer that I work with and talk to, they position annuities not on the basis of the features of the annuities. They position an annuity as a solution to a problem. The features of the product are almost a moot point to these agents. And what I mean by that is they're not out here flashing, well, this product has a 15% bonus, and this product has a 12% cap, and this product has a 8% roll-up rate, and this product has a 7.5% payout factor, and whatever it is, right? They're not out here flashing the features. They're fact-finding to determine what is this client's problem. Do they even have one? And if they do have a problem, how do we solve that problem most effectively? And then that annuity that solves that problem most effectively is now positioned as a solution to the problem, not as just some commodity that you're trying to sell the client. Okay, here's what you have to understand. I mentioned earlier that annuities are that the clients have a different mentality around it. Here's why. Every other line of insurance that you could sell, it's basically a monthly premium charge or an annual premium charge or whatever. They're going to pay their $150 a month for their insurance. They're going to pay their $300 a month for their insurance, whatever it is, right? Annuities, it is still insurance, but the way that the insurance is funded is by a lump sum of premium. So the cost to the client of getting it wrong is much greater than the cost to the client of getting other lines of insurance wrong. Why? Well, you sell them one policy that costs them $175 a month as opposed to the one you could have sold them that costs them $150 a month. Now, if it's the same coverage, I would advocate you didn't do what was in the client's best interest because you sold them a more expensive policy when there was a cheaper one available to get them the same end. With annuities, the cost of them getting it wrong is not just $25 a month like it is in other lines of insurance. The cost of getting it wrong is the success or the failure to some degree of their retirement journey. So the weight of getting it right is much, much greater, which is why clients often don't come into these conversations with a purchase decision made. They come into it with a curiosity. If they come into it with a curiosity and then you present the annuity on the basis of, well, look at this great bonus you could get, and look at this roll-up rate, and look at these index rates, and look at this payout factor, it's the shock and awe of the features. They're not seeing that as particularly advantageous because it's not necessarily tied to the result of anything. It's just looks cool. It's the flashy object. But if you take the time to ask them the right questions in the right way and you uncover what the problem is, aka fact finding, and then you solve the problem with the best possible solution, and you position the annuity as a solution to the problem, you will be setting yourself up for much, much greater success than what most agents experience. Because again, most agents approach the sale from a feature standpoint. That's what we're trying to get away from. We don't want to do that. So if you position it as a solution to the problem, you will, by effect, have much greater results. Now, the last thing I want to talk about are some administrative types of things you need to have in order to legally be able to sell annuities. Number one, whatever state you're going to be selling annuities in, you need to have a life insurance license. Right now, it's the only licensing requirement that there is. You don't need a securities license. You don't need any of that, not even when you're dealing with qualified money. Now, here's the catch. If you're not securities licensed, you cannot recommend, give advice for somebody to liquidate or change or buy or sell any type of security or investment. You're not securities registered. Okay? But if a client decides they want to, as a life insurance licensed professional, legally able to sell an annuity, you can facilitate that. So that's one misconception that agents have a lot of times is, oh, well, I'm not securities licensed, I can't sell annuities. No, you can't sell variable annuities and you can't sell RILAs, but you can sell fixed products like indexed annuities and MYGAs, multi-year guaranteed annuities. Okay, so there are annuities you can sell, and I would argue these are the types of annuities. When we're looking at annuities as insurance, these are the types of annuities that clients would be wanting anyways. So if you're life insurance licensed, you have the licensing requirements to do it. Now, as with other lines of insurance, you need to have errors and omissions insurance, E&O, and it needs to cover your annuity production. You also need to have your anti-money laundering training, okay? So your AML. Some carriers have specific places, specific vendors that you have to take this through. Most will accept both the AML and then the training that I'm going to get to in a second through whatever, continuing education vendor you use. You're going to need just a general annuity training certificate. And then you're also going to need your annuity suitability and best interest training. So 5 things from a licensing perspective or a contracting perspective to sell annuities: your state insurance license, your E&O, your AML, your general annuity training, and your annuity suitability and best interest training. Again, AML, annuity suitability and best interest, general annuity training, those can all generally be done through whatever continuing education company you're using. WebCE, RegEd, Kaplan, those types of places. If your IMO is using SuranceBay, SureLC, I believe that they offer an AML training course through that. And don't quote me on this, but that might actually be free to the agent. But then there are certain carriers that want their AML done specifically through LIMRA. So just be aware of that. If you're selling insurance outside of your resident state, let's say I'm in Texas. Let's say I have a Texas insurance license, life insurance license for the state of Texas, but I'm going to work virtually with a client in Oklahoma. I have to have my Oklahoma life insurance license. Whatever state the client is in that the policy is being sold in, you have to have a life insurance license in that state. Insurance is regulated at the state level. It adds a layer of complication, but it also adds a lot of flexibility and freedom. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there, but just bear that in mind. The last thing that I want to be abundantly clear on, every single carrier has a product-specific training. What I mean by that is, let's take, for example, product carrier that comes to mind is the ClearSpring ClearFlex. It's not necessarily an endorsement, just a product carrier that comes to mind. ClearSpring has a product called the ClearFlex. It's just a fixed indexed annuity. I can have my life insurance license, my E&O, my AML, my general annuity training, my annuity suitability and best interest be contracted with ClearSpring. I am an agent in their system. Then go and sell a ClearFlex policy and have to redo it because I didn't do the product training first. You have to complete the carrier-specific product training prior to soliciting that product, even if you are appropriately licensed and contracted with that carrier to sell it. This is something that your IMO's contracting department can check on for you. You can reach out to the carrier and verify this yourself. Am I in good order to sell XYZ product in this state? That's how I recommend wording it. Don't ask them the specifics. Do you have my license here? Because they're just going to answer based on the specifics. It doesn't mean that everything is done. You ask them, am I in good order to sell this product in this state? And they're going to look at all of the requirements that you would have to meet to sell that product in that state and let you know what is not yet met. But bear that in mind. Keep that locked in your mind in the deep recesses of your brain that when you go to sell a product, it's not just your state license, your AML, your E&O, your general annuity training, your annuity suitability and best interest training. You also have to have the carrier product specific training done before you take an application. Before you even start filling out an application, you can't have a date on an application that predates any of those requirements. What I mean is, you can't take an app and then go get your license and then your AML and your E&O and all of these trainings and then submit it when the date on those things is after the date you took the app. You have to have all of that checklist done on a date before you take the application. And if you're using an electronic application software like Firelight, it knows what date you're taking the app. So you have to have all of that done before you even start filling that out in Firelight. So I'm saying all of this not to make it sound complicated, because it's really not complicated. It's just a matter of getting the things done in the right order. And then I probably inverted this a little bit because you're obviously going to need all of your licensing and all of your certs and everything prior to even meeting with people. But I wanted to give you those key nuggets about, number one, having a duplicatable process, and number two, a part of that process being that you are solving a problem, not just positioning the annuity as the best looking orange on the shelf of oranges that they get to pick from. You want it to solve a problem. Don't sell it as a commodity. Sell it as a solution. So I hope that this helps you if you're a newer agent, or even those of you that are, here's the deal. I work with agents that have been in the industry for longer than I have. And there are times still where they'll sell a policy and they don't have some of these requirements done. They've got to retake the app. They'll try and position an annuity on the basis of features rather than solutions. So I hope that this is applicable to you regardless of how long you've been in the industry, regardless of your experience. And as always, happy selling. Have a great week, guys.